Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for tuning in this evening. You know, Doc, you're so on fire today. I gotta say to you, man, I am surprised that you're going negative on the Greek deal because it's more austerity. You should love this. You should love this. The conservatives in Germany like it. They don't like bailing them out any more than they have to, but the conservatives like it okay. The left in Greece is up in arms already. Like this should be your cup of tea. There's, I think they raised the VAT from 13 to 20. They cut more social programs. I mean, what more do you want as a conservative for real?
Well, here's my issue about the Greek deal, and we talked about this last week. They don't have the economy to be able to recover from this. They don't even have the ability to export their own goods. They rely on foreign multinationals. We talked about Dole, and we talked about, for the life of me, I cannot remember the other one. I did this last week. And they're the ones that export all their goods. They have several small corporations and businesses. They have a lot of, like if you go to the Caribbean, you might go to a Sandals resort and they have everything there, but the rest of the island is filled with little tiny restaurants supporting the tourism trade. Mm-hmm. That's what they have in Greece. They don't have a lot of anything. And the problem is they're not reducing the spending in the right areas. Great, increase the VAT, but all the VAT does is decrease your ability to produce goods. That's what it does, because you have to keep in mind every transaction, and that includes buying raw materials, has that VAT. And what did you say? It was up to 21% or something like that?
I heard it was at 13 and they bumped it up to 20.
Yeah, something like, well, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's like buying this pop, right? It cost me $1.69. You add another 30 cents onto that. Yeah, it doesn't seem like that much, but you add that up over a month, that's a significant blow to people being able to purchase things and to drive their own economy. That's one thing that we know, despite what Keynes might say, is the more you tax, the less your economy goes. It's like the economy is like a giant game of Monopoly. If you play that, you get all the taxes back at some point. One of the people who benefits from that, terrific. That game can go forever. But if you take that money out of circulation during the Monopoly game, which is what happens when you tax stuff, the same thing happens, because no matter what you do, if you tax, that government can only employ a certain number of people, because that government can only support a certain number of people.
That's not Keynesian though. I mean, Keynes.
Well, I know, but Keynes says the more spending you do with the government, the more government, the better.
Priming the pump when private demand goes to nil. That's the whole point, is that when you're in this kind of situation that Greece is in, where the private sector can't do anything because the demand is so repressed, then the only other entity that can spend is government spending. Now, the thing is with this deal, why a lot of economists are just scratching their heads again, saying, what is Europe doing? And this is what I heard from a couple of international folks on the radio the other day, was why didn't they just grant sweeping debt relief from the very beginning with the in exchange for structural reforms to the Greek economy to make their debt load, the debt burden, like manageable, and reforms in their tax structure and the way that they import and export and their pension programs more in line with what they actually are able to do, because it's their debt burden right now, which got rounded up when they joined the Eurozone back in 2007 and were going gangbusters with cheap credit and easy money given to them by European banks that said, okay, here you go. You can't have irresponsible borrowing without irresponsible lending. Doesn't work that way. And so they rack up this debt that they can't sustain. Well, at some point, and you know this probably better than I do, and I'm in this business, at some point, the creditor says, look, you know what, it's not worth it anymore, and writes it off. And that's what a lot of economists say should have been a piece of that, like not completely, but it should have been a piece of that early on.
Well, now I
not kicking the can down the road like this does.
Well, and that's another great point. It does kick the can down the road. Here's what the problem is. Greece cooked the books to get into the EU. They did. They cooked the books. Second thing is, when they found out They shut up about it and didn't reveal it to anybody. So this irresponsible lending, yeah, it might have been irresponsible.
That's a complete misstatement of what actually happened. The revenue projections and the growth rates were signed off on. The Greek government they were too generous, they were too optimistic, but the IMF took a look at it, said it was fine. The EU took a look at it, said it was fine. Everybody said it was good.
But if you give them the wrong numbers,
they did their own analysis. That's not you can't blame the entire thing on the Greek government, the Greek people. That's not reality. It's not how it went down.
I'm not blaming the Greek people at all. I'm not. They got a free ride on other people's money, and good for them. Now they have to pay the piper. The bottom line is you're talking about irresponsible lending. I agree. Maybe they are culpable in here somewhere, but you can't overlook the fact that the Greeks were not honest with their accounting. And let's say they were. When they found out the accounting errors, we'll call it errors, they didn't do anything because of the Olympics, right? So now you fast forward, you're still spending. And in 2012, they did get debt relief. And the deal was you're going to do exactly what you talked about doing. Mm-hmm. We're going to restructure the economy. We'll give you debt relief, but you got to restructure the economy. Well, guess what they didn't do?
The debt relief was a drop in the bucket. It wasn't enough.
Well, but there's more debt relief down the road if they had restructured their economy. And so as in the process of trying to restructure their economy, this new government came in and said, well, screw it. Well, we don't think we owe anybody. That's what the problem is. They said, we've been vandalized. We've been, screwed over, and we don't owe this money. We're not going to pay it. Well, suddenly, now you have the rest of the EU on the hook, right? Well, fine. Don't get me wrong. I think the Germans are a-holes for saying, hey, listen, we're not going to come up with some kind of debt relief because we gave them debt relief. Well, right? Absolutely, way back. But here's what the problem is. If you allow the Greeks to get away with it, then suddenly you have a domino effect across the rest of Europe. Well, let's talk about that domino effect right after this break. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Lefty is chomping at the bit to get at me. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back right after this break.